Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Novels and Nightcaps, the podcast where we read, we drink, and we ramble. My name is Nor.
I'm Gabe. And Hugo, this is where you say who you are.
This is where you introduce yourself.
Can you guys introduce me? Make it grandiose.
This is Hugo. Audience, say hello to Hugo. Hugo, say hello to audience.
Hi, everyone. I know you guys missed me.
Yeah, so if you guys remember, he was here last time when we talked about the book Project Hail Mary. In this week's episode, it's kind of a bonus one where we're going to be talking about the movie, giving our overall impressions, kind of just geeking out over it because it was such a good movie. We're going to talk about it, how it lives up to the book, any things that the movie did differently over the book, anything that we thought was better done, something that could have, benefited from it. We're gonna talk about the movie.
Yeah, and it's been 6 months since our episode on Project Hail Mary, but it was one of our first books that we covered. So if you want to go see our opinions on the book in a more fresh sort of way, go check that out. You can find that both on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the platforms, YouTube, what have you. And you can see the three of us talk about Project Hail Mary well before the movie comes out. But this is going to be more of a comparative episode. I mean, we're assuming that that the people have both read and seen the movie, or at least seen the movie, right? Is that the assumption here from the get-go?
Major spoilers ahead. I mean,
yeah, I don't know how we're gonna have a
book.
discussion here if you haven't either seen the movie or read the book.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Go read the book. Go see the movie. Both a good time. 100%. Like, all of us loved the book, and then all of us loved the movie. So this is going to be, I guess, mostly about adaptation, right? Like how they adapted the book and our opinions on the choices that they made, because they definitely made some changes. Yet at the same time, there's a real spirit of the book that they definitely capture on screen. So I guess we should probably start with like our overall impressions about how they adapted it. So not necessarily the movie itself, because we all liked it. Yeah, we all enjoyed it. It was a good movie. But what did we think about adapting the book? Do you think it did the book justice?
Wait a minute. Did we even go over our drinks today?
Oh, I completely forgot. Because yeah, you're right. So Nightcaps, we have drinks.
We
so
drank.
Before we get into it, actually, we should probably talk about our drinks. Nor, what are you drinking?
Okay, I was desperate and I kind of was looking around for whatever I had. It turns out I have a couple of things that are, red in nature. And I was thinking about the betrothal line. So I experimented with a couple of, different permutations. Two of them were horrible, just not good at all. And somehow like 3 red beverages mixed to make a really pitch black substance. So I don't know how that worked out, but we're not going with that. Instead, I went with what I call the betrothal line. And if you look closely, it just looks incredibly red. It has vodka, Campari, and grenadine. And it tastes pretty good.
Nor I did something kind of similar, except without the experimentation or spirit, really.
You got it right.
I made an old fashioned, but then added grenadine to make my drink red.
Good.
I also call it the betrothal line. It's just a different sort of vibe. Mine's maybe in a different system, like a different solar system. I don't know. It's not the.
If that's the spirit that we're going with.
Hugo, what did you drink?
Yeah, I didn't get the red memo, but I thought I'd go with something from the book. A bag of vodka. I don't know how to say her name, like Ilyoknia or Ina, something like that. It's Russian.
Yeah, the Russian one. Yeah.
But, he drank a few bags of her vodka. I figured I'd give it a try.
You're going to pay her back for that, right?
It? Yeah, you have to pay her back. It's not good. But you do have a little straw with an umbrella for those who aren't watching. You have a delightful little umbrella. I mean,
that's just straight vodka, guys. I mean, if you want to,
can I ask what brand
it
of vodka?
Home. Tito's,
classic.
Can't go wrong with that.
Okay, well, thank you, Nor, for reminding me. I can't believe it's just I was so excited to compare the book to the movie that I skipped over one of the fundamental aspects of our show. But back to it. Do you think that the movie did the book justice.
Absolutely. I honestly think it's one of the best like movie adaptations, like from book to movie. I think it's really well done. I really enjoyed how it captures the spirit of the novel while, focusing on different aspects of it as opposed to the novel. So you're not just rereading the book, you're revisiting this world through a completely, not necessarily a completely different lens, but a different perspective, a more human aspect. And I thought it was amazing. It was such a great time. It reminded me, and it reminded everybody around me, it seems, of why we go to the movies in the first place. And I think that's a major accomplishment.
I think that's the like highest praise we usually give movies is the best movies of the year remind us why we go to the movies, whether it be Sinners or Project Hail Mary or like Oppenheimer. Like there's always those landmark films every single year that are just a reminder why you pay for a ticket and you go to the seat rather than just relying on a streaming service. I mean, I think that's very important, and I 100% agree. Project Hail Mary, the movie, definitely did that. And I liked what you said about it capturing different elements because I definitely would agree because you obviously get a lot more of the science in the book that I'm sure we'll talk about a bit more. But you get a lot more of the character and the fear and the anxiety in the film. A lot more of the, I guess, the buddy cop aspect of it. It's a lot more emotional, which obviously because you get to see them act, which matters. But yeah, I completely agree with you. What do you think, Hugo?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Seeing the actual character being brought to life in that way. It's not, when I read the book, I did not even come remotely close to thinking of Ryan Gosling, but I gotta say, there was a lot more humor to the character himself. I mean, it was a nice way to, like you said, it was through a different scope, and it almost felt like the characters were different as well. Rocky stayed mostly the same, but I mean, you had Ryland and Strat who just felt like they were completely different, which was nice. It wasn't like you were watching or reading the same thing. It was fresh, you know?
That's funny because I mean, I completely pictured Ryan Gosling, but I think that's partly because the casting was out, and so before we read the book, we knew who was playing who, and so I was very much unable to distinguish the two, and I was like, yeah, this definitely fits his personality. This
For
is great
sure.
casting. So at least for me, like I 100% pictured them as that, and Strat was the character that I thought improved the most from book to screen. Like they definitely humanized her, and she was a lot less cold compared to the book. I mean, in a different way. She was still cold. She still
Hmm.
made a lot of calculated decisions, but some of the things that they included in the movie or added to the movie, like the final scene with Earth, or not the final scene of the movie, but the final time we see Earth, whenever she gets to see Grace succeed, it feels more not redemptive, but like the reason that she did it wasn't because of humanity, but was to like prove to Grace that he could do what he said he could do. And that felt a little bit more redemptive compared to the book. Like we talked about the last time we talked about the book, like she is pretty hardcore and is
Yeah.
100% choosing Earth over Grace. Like that is the decision there. It's not necessarily about how he's actually not a coward. He can do it. She believes in him. That's not the tone that is at least portrayed. At least that's what I got. And I was really satisfied because I think that what you said, Hugo, was right. It doesn't feel like you're just watching what the book said exactly. It captured the spirit, highlighted elements that I'd never considered, and really pushed a different emotional angle that wasn't necessarily present. So yeah, I very much agree. I think that was fantastic. I mean, Nor, did you picture Ryan Gosling? Was that your mental image?
No, I did. I saw the trailer before I read the book,
Yeah.
but it just made sense. It clicked. It clicked right away. And also with Strat, that was a subtle one. Reading the book, I could picture, you know, I think her name's like Sandra Healer playing Strat. Like that also felt right on point. And once again, I really enjoyed how they humanized, the whole story. It was a lot more humanized than in the book. Not that the book, didn't have that heart to it. It just focused more on the science and the problem solving. And we talked about this, almost a year ago now. when we talked about the book. But my one problem with the book was that it didn't focus as much, or that it missed out on exploring, the human aspect of it all. You're going on this one-way mission against your will to save all of humanity. You're not coming back. You're gonna die. And you don't really feel like you're up for the task. You're a school teacher, not a astronaut. So it was really refreshing seeing that explored in the movie in a way that doesn't neglect the problem solving of the book. There's still science elements in the movie. There's still a lot of problem solving, not as explicitly maybe, but you still get that sense of like, hey, science is cool, and oh, all the people of the world are working together to solve this problem. And then you have Rocky and Grace working together with each other. But the movie definitely focuses on the heart a lot more. The friendship, the relationship between Rocky and Grace is, the emotional anchor of the movie. And I went to work the next day after I recommended some coworkers see the movie, and they were like, "I hate you. Why did you make me go see this movie? I hate you so much," because of how invested they were in Rocky and how scared they were when it seemed that he was about to die. And it was just an emotional roller coaster for, I think, everybody that has seen the movie, at least the people around me. And yeah, that's the one, aspect that has stuck with me a week after I've seen the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that we talked about this, I mean, as you said, almost a year ago, that the strength of the book is in part its pacing, right? Because of this problem-solving loop that's occurring, you're constantly engaged in what's happening. And the movie realizes that that doesn't work for film. The problem-solving loop is not necessarily what's going to drive an audience to feel something or to really stay engaged. I mean, to an extent. And I think you said it right. Like, they identified that emotional bond and the cowardice angle is what is going to make the movie good. It's the human side that's going to make the movie good. And not that they didn't dumb down the science, which I was actually pretty nervous about, just because that's one of the parts I enjoyed is I got to feel smart. I got to feel like whenever reading the book, I got to feel like I could know the science, even though I, obviously really don't. But I got to feel like I could. And in the movie, while they do streamline most of the scientific inquiry for the most part, like the creation of the habitat boxes, the boxes in which they're breeding the not the astrophage, but
Chalmeba?
the
Chamiba.
Talmiba, exactly. In the book, that's like a big process to figure out how to make those. And then in the movie, he just tells
It's a
the audience.
one-liner. And the things that we
Yeah,
had
which
made
is fine.
earlier.
Yeah, and so I was able to know, as somebody who read the book, the background beyond that. But also, I kind of realized, because I went with pretty much a big group of people who had never read the book. None of them cared. They didn't need to care. Of course, I think if you read the book, you're going to be really interested. But in a 2.5 hour setting, like, that's not necessarily on the ladder of importance. It's not very high up. So I 100% agree with you, though. I think they did a great job in adapting it. And I mean, the visuals were just gorgeous. It was very pretty. Very was it claustrophobic? I was watching behind the scenes information, and they were talking about creating the spaceship and how they wanted inside the spaceship to feel very like tight and claustrophobic, but then whenever they opened up the door and you went into space, it felt like vast and grand. Did you guys feel the claustrophobia inside of the spaceship, or
It felt
was that not a concern?
I felt the vastness of space whenever they were like describing the fearful aspect of it, not necessarily as like a comfort to the, space inside the claustrophobia part, but I didn't really get that sense of like, a claustrophobic space. Of course it was. I mean, the way they had gone through every portion of the ship at least was visited like twice throughout the movie. I mean, it's just I don't know. That didn't really pick up with me, but the vastness of space I definitely picked up on, especially when he was trying to get the blip B and blip C, the little capsules that were sent. You could feel the scary aspect.
Right. There are three scenes that come to mind. The first one is when he wakes up and he looks out the window and just sees nothing. That was terrifying. That felt terrifying. And the score was composed by I think is Daniel Pemberton. It's the guy that composed the Spider-Verse movies, who was my number one Spotify artist like a couple years ago, just because I was planning D&D and that was the soundtrack I listened to. I'm a big fan of Daniel Pemberton, and so the soundtrack, the score to me was really good. It nailed like the not claustrophobia, but like the opposite sense of like the vastness of space. I felt the dread that Rylan must have felt upon waking up and realizing like, oh my god, I am so far away from home, and if I leave this tiny little ship, I am done for. And then the second scene that came to mind was when he discards the bodies of the other humans,
Mhm.
right? The captain and the mechanic, and their bodies kind of float across space with like their
They just
pictures and their
drift.
belongings. They just drift, and it was horrifying. It was beautiful in like a haunting way. And then the other one was when he is trying to get the blip. See, I think, yeah, the little message that Rocky sends him. He looks down and just sees absolutely nothing, and he's like, "Nope, and I'm not doing this." And then he ends up doing it. I think this movie captures, how crazy space actually is once you really think about it. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you guys. It was weird to me that they said they're trying to go for like this
Mhm.
claustrophobic atmosphere, especially whenever you have one room that is
With the
literally
screens.
that's
Yeah.
designed to try and make it feel like a more open space. And that's a pretty big room for what it is. I mean, it makes sense. I think that's a very interesting idea to have a basically a screen room so that you can capture any sort of environment. I thought that was interesting.
I like the addition of that because if you just saw the movie, you wouldn't know that that part wasn't in the book. But it was kind of nice to see that in this universe or this depiction of the story, they actually went out of their way to make it feel like they were doing it for something, like they were leaving the earth and that the earth shouldn't be forgotten, which was really nice. They kind of skipped out on that in the not necessarily skipped out on it in the book, but it was kind of a afterthought, or you didn't feel as intentional, I guess.
Yeah,
And I
I
think
mean,
that's you go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say that in my head canon, I picture like, the original intent was for these people to eventually, when it was time to, die and drift off to sleep, they would just sit in that room and maybe watch something beautiful, like a scene from Earth or pictures of the people that they loved. It's a little human element that they added in there. It just works cinematically too, having when Rocky eventually moves in, having this whole scene where he shows him like what humanity kind of looks like, what Earth looks like, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, on the page, it's just not going to have as much of an impact
Mhm.
to say like I see on the screens pictures of Earth. I mean, you can't like a montage in a book of them experiencing Earth just doesn't hit like it does in a movie. And so I thought it was an excellent case of why this adaptation is so good because it takes the spirit of what they're trying to do in the book and it says, okay, how can we use the medium in order to achieve something even greater, achieve something in the spirit, in the goal of the book, but uses our visual medium to its advantage. And I thought it did an excellent job with that. I mean, 100% that scene where he takes Rocky and is showing him about Earth, like in the book, that's kind of achieved just through dialogue, pretty much, right? It's achieved through dialogue. And that's all great. I mean, it works really well for a book, but that would be extremely boring, I think, for the most part, in the movie if they just sit around for granted. The dialogue is really excellent and very funny, and they do a great job making it physical and exciting. But still, right, explaining what Earth is like purely through dialogue just isn't the same as how efficient it is to show him. And
Right,
I
and
thought that, yeah,
we talked about it in our episode when we discussed, like the movie adaptations and, if you can even translate a book into the big screen. And you can, but you have to remember that translation isn't like an exact word for word like science. You capture feelings, you capture essence, and this movie does it really well. Again, I already said this, but you're not rereading the book, you're revisiting the world through a different lens. Like Hugo said, through a different scope. And I think,
Petrovus.
at least in recent memory, this is one of the best adaptations I've seen in a while. You know.
Yeah. I
Okay,
mean, yeah. I was just gonna say, there are certain ones that really, certain, I guess, adaptations that just never really stuck with me. Like whenever they did a live action version of The Lion King, it just felt so redundant and kind of pointless considering the characters wouldn't be able to show as much emotion. Whatever. That was that. But it's just sometimes it feels like there's no actual reason to do it other than just money. I mean, there was the book, one of my favorite adaptations, Perks of Being a Wallflower. It was probably one of the only other stories that I consider being so well done from a book to a movie that I've seen. I mean, they really knew what to pick up and what to leave behind for this specific movie. And if you like the movie, I think you would definitely love the book. There's like an equal balance that I could say would definitely be there. I can't say the same for like the Percy Jackson movies or the TV show or anything like that because they're so uneven in my opinion. But this, I think, would be consistent across both of those platforms.
I think it's worth mentioning that not only was Andy Weir one of the producers on the movie, but so was Ryan Gosling. And Ryan Gosling received a copy of Project Hail Mary before it was even released to the public, like the book. So he read it and then immediately got the rights to the film, and they started working on the movie before the book was even released. So this truly is, especially for Ryan Gosling, like a passion project. I mean, he's the guy that got Lord and Miller to work on it, who we all know are fantastic directors. So he really put the puzzle pieces together in order to make sure, I mean, a good adaptation happened. And I think that can't be understated, actually, how much Ryan Gosling had staked on this movie over the
Yeah.
past, I mean, 6 years or whatever. I don't know when it was released, when their initial book,
And
2021, almost 6 years. Like, that's crazy.
yeah, and just for those listeners who might not know, Lord and Miller are the guys who directed the Lego movie. They directed 21 and 22 Jump Street, uh, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. But they also produced the Spider-Verse movies, and I'm pretty sure all of the Lego movies that have come out since the original. So these guys have a really good filmography. They are solid. They've made some of the best, most heartfelt movies out there, and they are also incredibly funny. And yeah, no, I heard that this was Ryan Gosling's passion project, and it really shows. And it's a testament to how when you have a project being worked on by people who care about it, the result, like it really shows. I mean, there's a lot of heart in this movie. There's a lot of, it's just a fun blockbuster that leaves people speechless, and it makes people cry, and it makes people laugh. I mean, I've seen it, I've seen the movie 3 times now. Each time in a full theater full of people that are laughing and reacting to the movie as it was happening. And I haven't had that experience since, the big movies like No Way Home or Infinity War or Endgame, the superhero movies.
Dude,
It's been a while since I've seen that happen in a different movie that's not part of, the MCU or Star Wars.
You don't get that kind of fanfare, I guess. I mean, like that there was actual like cheering and laughter going on, and we go through maybe 4 movies a week. We go to the movies a lot, and sometimes too much.
Yeah, we
And mind you, most of these are on like the opening nights or when you would expect it to be most packed. Every single time we've seen this movie, I think the entire theater has been crowded. We have it tomorrow as well, and it's still an IMAX.
4 time.
Yeah, 4th time for him. But it's just one of those movies that's able to walk on its own 2 legs without needing anyone or anything else behind it. I feel like Sinners was another one of those movies that kind of picked up its own traction. The word of mouth has been so incredibly positive. I don't think I've seen one negative review other than like not balancing the centrifuge, whatever. Like I don't care about
Yeah.
that. I liked
I
it
will
for
say,
the
I will say, there was this guy sitting next to me, and every time someone laughed, every time everybody laughed, he would look at me and say, "It wasn't that funny. It wasn't that funny. It wasn't that
that's
funny."
so that's
But I think he was just a hater,
you
just a
sound
party
handsome.
pooper.
If I
that's so funny. Oh
No,
my
but
gosh.
I mean, if you go to AMC, you know that Nicole Kidman ad that plays every single
Yes.
time.
They've
Oh,
shortened
you
it.
could cite it
They've
word for
shortened it.
word. Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's literally describing Project Hail Mary. Like, this is why we see movies. Heartbreak feels good in a place like this, and it does. I was I was looking over when I saw it with my family. My sister was crying, and my brother was gasping, and my mom was asleep. But my mom is my mom. My dad was laughing, and my dad usually doesn't laugh when he's watching movies. He's kind of grumpy when it comes to movies for whatever reason. So you got a real hit if you can make my dad laugh.
I would
And
give.
I had my dad who read this book pretty recently, actually. I mean, he's been on the podcast. I had him read the book. I told him he has to, even though he hates science fiction. I was like, this is part of me educating him in the genre of science fiction and fantasy. And he loved it. And then he's like recently not been a huge movie person, but he's the one who asked my mom to like, can we go to the movies, please? I would really like to see Project Hail Mary. And they loved it. He called me after, like, that's so good. And I mean, it goes to show. I think, like we're talking about, the power of word to word, word of mouth is essential. Not only with movies, but also with books, right? I mean, that is the ultimate way to market media that is supposed to change you as a human, that is supposed to elicit emotion. I mean, you are much more likely to go see something or read something if your best friend tells you, hey, you would love this. This is really good, compared to seeing an advertisement on the algorithm. Like, you trust the people around you. You don't trust the algorithm. Dumping money into ads isn't going to do much, but making something that's worth seeing will do something. That's I think, a big key here. I did want to mention, I looked at my book. For those who are listening and you can't read it, it says soon to be a major motion picture starring Ryan Gosling. So that's probably partly why I kept imagining Ryan Gosling as Grace, because
Yeah,
literally he's
my
on the
copy
cover.
says the exact same thing.
I was like, maybe I kept reading that right before,
When
whenever
did they
someone looked at the cover.
announce that? Because I'm almost positive I read it before they announced him, but I might have read it after and just completely missed it.
I
Regardless,
know the
yeah,
trailer came out last year, um, and we got the book shortly after the trailer came out.
Yeah, apparently it was first announced in March 2020 before the book was even released. But that usually says very little. So I don't know whenever it actually, like,
yeah, maybe he got the call then or something. But no,
Yeah.
it's weird. Like, now that I go backwards thinking about the book itself, it's weird. Like, I can completely see why they would have casted him. I mean, from me having read the book before I knew that it was him compared to watching the movie after, there's almost like a disconnect, because I can completely see the entire story being told without Ryan Gosling, but I can also see it being told with him. He feels like the character in such a weird way, but it's really nice to see him on, the big screen, because he brought the character to life in a way that I never really read. I mean, when I had first read it, the main character, Ryland Grace, was a likable character, but he didn't feel like Ryan Gosling. But now he does, and it's so strange.
Okay, I have two, like, major questions that we have to talk about this episode. And I want to ask them before we get too deep, because I think this will take a while. Number one, what is the thing that you liked so much in the book that we lost in the movie, right? So whether it be a plot point or just an element of the book that we lost in the movie, what is it? What is that piece? And then number two, what is the thing that the movie added that you kind of wish was in the book because of how great it was?
I I would say one major aspect of the movie that really worked for me, which I guess they didn't really add as much as they took away, was the DNA compatibility for the 11-year induced coma. Like, that there was a special gene in the book that they needed that Ryland just so happened to have. And I believe during the last episode, it was one of those things that we had to plead, like,
The
this.
suspension of disbelief.
Exactly. Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
just the
yeah.
feigning ignorance of. And it's like, yeah, okay, it works, I guess. But seeing it done just completely without that whole gene idea, it kind of worked for me. I mean, like, I didn't really think of it even once. The whole story, I was just going through it scene by scene and not even questioning any portion of it. But with the book, it was like, okay, I'll kind of play
No,
silly
no, no.
for a
I
little bit.
completely get that because you're telling me that the savior of the universe is basically a middle school teacher that just so happens to have a PhD in molecular biology. The one person who went against the norm, saying like, "Oh, hey, maybe we don't need water for life." He gets chosen to be part of this project. He makes it all the way to the top, and then he just happens to also have this gene that makes him eligible for the mission. It's like, yeah, there's a couple of layers there. If you have to suspend your disbelief a couple times. I can get behind the whole middle school teacher thing. I think that all actually makes him more human and more charismatic, and that's a really refreshing layer to the book, especially to the book, because he doesn't curse. He makes a lot of silly expressions throughout the novel. I think
I
that's
do love
refreshing
that.
to see. But yeah, the little coma resilient gene thing, it didn't hamper the experience, but we didn't really need it. And the movie handles that really well because Strat just simply says, nothing about this is safe. Nothing about this mission is safe. Like, is it even safe for these people to go on a space trip, to be on a, induced coma for 11 years? And Strat says, no, this isn't safe. It's a long shot. This is why we call it Project Hail Mary. And I think just one line fixes that problem. And, it doesn't raise any questions. And we go with the flow and we keep moving forward. And it works. And I like it.
So I haven't seen it 3 times. I just saw it 1 time, and I did not realize that. I did like it completely, and that's a good thing, I think. The fact
Yeah.
that it wasn't missed is, I think, good. I mean, you're all right. We talked about that last time of as being kind of this significant buy-in that it's not just that Grace is brilliant, but it's also kind of chance that he is able to go on this mission. But I think the movie did a great job of making it more of a choice from Strat's perspective. It felt like a very intentional decision. Technically, they could have gotten some other scientist, but she was like, no, you are the best option here. You are the only person who can really do this. And that's enough, right? Like that's enough to send him on the mission whenever all of humanity is on the line. So I agree. I didn't even realize that wasn't there. I didn't even think about it. I forgot that was even in the book. So yeah,
No, and
that's a good thing to bring to light.
I mean, it's not like the lack of the gene implies like a plot hole in the book, in the movie. Like, there's no plot hole here. It's just, it's a dangerous mission. Like, we don't need that. It wasn't like a
Added
key
factor.
element in the novel. Yeah,
No, I think that's great. No, I guess my thing that I was going to mention, at least whenever we're talking about what the movie adds that the book doesn't have, is the bar scene with Sign of the Times, Harry Styles, that singing scene. That one was, oh my gosh, that was such a good scene, and the amount it added for her character, the amount just the song said, how the single song summarized the entire sort of human experience in that room of sacrificing so much for this world and this sort of like finality and isolation, because not only do they do a great job of making both Rocky and Grace feel completely isolated out in space, but they also make Strat feel very isolated in her job, in her position on Earth. And that song just 100% showed it, I think, in the best way possible. Obviously, that just wouldn't work in the book. It's something that only a visual or auditorial medium could do, and they really pulled it off. So that stuck out to me.
You don't think it
But
would have
what about you, Nor? What is the biggest thing?
Or Hugo, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask. I mean, you don't think it would have the same effect if they just put the lyrics to Sign of the Time in the book? You could read it all in your head.
The whole song.
No,
I think
so
that'd be
this-
great
this-
if they put it
It's this legal thing they have to go through, and
I will say,
not particularly.
one thing that, Gabe, you just reminded me of, and I had completely forgotten about this, but one thing I really liked in the book was the effect that you felt of the time that they had spent in space. I think there's only 1 point, or maybe 2 points in the movie that you can actually tell that this is going to be a long trip, and that's when he's first trying to route a way back to Earth, and it says, like, 113 years or something like that. And then the transmission to contact Earth is 11 years. And then at the very end, he's going back to save Rocky, and he has like a 45-day calendar or something like that. And the book itself, they do not like make you feel comforted by any skips in times at all. Like, you feel the aging process. I think in the book it says that Rocky's been at Tau Ceti for 45 years before he even is contacted by Ryland, which to me is such a huge part on how much of this is a voyage, because in the movie it feels relatively quick, like from the time he wakes up to the time, not necessarily that he goes back to Arid, but when they finish their idea or their initial planning on Planet Adrian. And it's just kind of a really weird aspect that I really did enjoy from the book. I don't necessarily think that the movie missed any portion of like the experience, but it was just so strange watching it without the time being a factor. I really did enjoy the time being such a scary portion of it, that it's always going to be moving, and it was just kind of nice to see.
Yeah, no, the time aspect of space travel is probably, like on a larger scale, our biggest hurdle. Like, in terms of like humanity trying to eventually conquer the cosmos. It's like we're currently reading Hyperion right now, and it's such a matter of fact thing in that world. But they talk about time debt and like how much time they lose as if it's just a currency. Like, oh, yeah, obviously flying to Los Angeles is gonna cost me $400, $500. But they talk about it in like terms of like years, traveling to this planet, I'm gonna accumulate a time debt of like 5 months. It's like, yeah, eventually that is gonna be a very
Just gonna
normal
catch up.
thing that we overlook. Whereas right now, like we watch movies like Interstellar or even Project Hail Mary, and we the time aspect is the biggest sacrifice. It's quite crazy to think, like how much time you lose. Because by the time Ryland sends the Beatles back, by the time the Beatles arrive, I believe almost 30 years have passed, right? Or something like that. And by then, the
Yeah.
consequences of, the astrophage have been. I mean, even Strauss says it in the movie, in 30 years, a quarter of the population is going to essentially die off. And that's assuming that the people of the world work together to preserve and share their food, which, they won't.
They won't.
And
Yeah.
also, that scene alone humanizes Strat really damn well, because you could hear her kind of choke on the words. She is not as cold as she is in the book. She is very human. Almost any scene with her does wonders for her character. When she's alone on deck while everybody's singing, and then she joins them. When Ryland says, "You really think this is gonna work?" and she says, "God willing," and Ryland asks, "Do you believe in
Do you
God?
believe in God?
What's the alternative?" It's like, that's a good scene right there. And yeah, I mean, going back to that question that you asked, Gabe, almost 10 minutes ago. One scene that I wish the book had, or one scene that the book had that I wish was kept in the movie, and I think Hugo might agree with me on this one, is, the whole talk of like, what's the word? Like, planting trees in the Sahara and blowing up the ice
in orange.
Yeah, that's mine.
in
Yeah.
Antarctica. Like, inducing global warming purposefully to buy us some time, while knowing that this is destroying the ecosystem. I'm pretty sure they allude to like a couple species going extinct. Like, there's a huge sacrifice in there, and it's such a heartbreaking scene. It left me speechless when I was reading that, and I wish we had seen some of that in the movie. I mean, I get why we didn't. It might have ruined the pacing a little bit, but it's such a powerful scene in the book, and the consequences of it are so disastrous. And it's not even fixing the problem; it's just delaying it. It's giving us some time. It's horrible. It's heartbreaking.
One of
That's
Yeah,
one
I
scene.
definitely agree. I definitely agree. That to me was my biggest scene, and it's 100% not that it should be in the movie, not that at all, but it's something that I very much appreciated in the book. and would love to see on screen. Like if they had like a 4-hour cut, you know, that'd be awesome.
There
But
is
I
like a three
completely
and a half
understand. You
hour
got to
cut.
prioritize what the story's about.
Now,
Is there actually?
somewhere there is, I'm pretty sure, a director's cut, but I doubt that's going to make it to public. But one of the things that I did really enjoy was Dimitri in the book. That they kind of cut out Dimitri in place for Carl, but it's been forever since I read the book. Wasn't he like one of the major scientists that was involved with Stratton nuking the
Dimitri
Arctic?
is the one that created the Beatles.
Think
I
so.
think so. Yeah, he is a major part of the book, but he's not in the movie. But I definitely liked Carl felt like more important in the movie. And it might just be because I had a little bit more object permanence, like I could see him. And like it's only 2.5 hours, so he felt important because he had more screen time, I think, relatively speaking, compared to the book. But I very much like what they did with Carl. But yeah, I think that Antarctica scene was something that I very much wanted to see. And then honestly, something that I wish they didn't do in the movie, and I really want your take on this. I wish we didn't see Earth get the Beatles. Like I wish we didn't go back to Earth at the final moment to see Strat like receive the tapes, because that's one of the things I loved about how ambiguous the book was, is you kind of just have to hope. I kind of liked that.
Yeah,
I kind of liked how open that was.
I had initially assumed that like the whole original team that was working on it had probably died at that point, or that something had happened, because in the book, all you're informed of is that the scientists on Arid detected a warmth signature, like that the sun stopped dimming. And that was really nice to read. But in the movie, I'm split because I really do love that they showed her finally getting that video back, because that was one of the things I'd mostly like I'd wanted to see so bad in the book, to see him go home. But at the same time, it's like can't have your cake and eat it too. Either ending would have been great for me. I'm happy to see how it would have played out in both adaptations.
Yeah, no, in the book it says that Rocky goes up to him and he's like, hey, we got news from the astronomy hive. They have news about Sol, which is, our sun. And they're like, Sol, Earth's sun, has returned to its pre-astrophage brightness. There's only one possible way that happens. Astrophage is gone. Or at least reduced in population so much that it doesn't matter. So you do get kind of like the answer that Earth is saved. I also, I'm also like a big fan of like ambiguous endings, so I would have liked not to see Earth. But when you think about how you're gonna adapt this book to like
A
for a
larger
wider
audience.
audience, right? You want to make it satisfying. I mean, I wasn't focusing so much on that. I was thinking more so about how in the book, Ryland, when he is in Arid, he is like really skinny and malnutritioned, and he's eating like me burgers and
Himself.
amoeba, right? It's like how do you do that in the movie? That I was curious about that. How are you gonna pull that off in the movie in a way that feels satisfying and not at all kind of disheartening to see? So I'm kind of glad they didn't do it in the movie. That he just looks normal and he's living his life. He's pretty happy. But
Yeah,
I also enjoyed the scene where you see Strahd kind of smile and laugh and be happy about it, because in the movie Strahd feels more of an actual character as opposed to in the book. She has There's a lot more stuff going on with her. You can relate to her a lot more in the movie. She feels like one of the central characters. Not as central, of course, as Rocky and Ryland, but you
she
still want
feels
to
like an
see kind of a conclusion
antagonist
to her
in the
arc.
book.
Yeah, in the book she is,
Yeah,
in a
The
way.
yeah,
closest thing. Yeah.
that's one of my biggest like almost problems. I wouldn't say it's a problem because I loved the movie a lot and I like what they did a lot. Yet one of the things I think definitely gets flattened, book to movie, is some of the bigger philosophical questions of what you're willing to sacrifice. Because to me, it feels like in the movie, Strahd is like a good person and she believes in Grace, and it's more about like her believing in him is more so the inspiration for sending him on this mission. And I kind of enjoyed having to grapple with the weight of the question in the book, which is this idea of like we're willing to sacrifice Antarctica in order to prolong humanity. If I'm willing to do that, I'm willing to sacrifice you. And that it doesn't feel like a sacrifice in the movie. It feels like more of
A
a
push.
trying to force him to, yeah, trying to push him. And so that's, I don't know, that's one thing that made me definitely think, like, I agree that her becoming a more well-rounded character is really good. And her not just simply being an antagonist, is really good. But is she possibly humanized too much in the movie? Because it definitely flattens out some of those deeper, that deeper significance that we 100% see in the book.
I do
Well,
get that. I will say that one scene that kind of not necessarily it doesn't fix the problem that you're speaking of, but it kind of alleviates it a little bit. It's one line, but it's a powerful line, I think. It's right before the karaoke scene where Rylan goes up to Strahd and they start talking, and he's like, "This must be really hard for you, sending all these people off to die." And she says, "Actually, it isn't." And she just kind of smiles at it. It's like, at the end of the day, she is still very much okay with sending all these people to die. She's not the one sacrificing herself. But I do agree that, when you do humanize her a little bit too much, you miss out on some of the friction and the conflicts that the book explores. I just, how do you manage both things in the two and a
yeah.
half hour movie without, getting a director's cut, which I will gladly watch if it ever comes out. I'm more than happy to see that. But I get it, you want to focus on different elements of the story. And I completely respect that choice. I think it pays off really well. I mean, yet the human element of this movie, of this story, it's just so captivating to me.
I yeah,
But
I will say. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say one thing that I really, I guess, picked up on as a difference between the movie and the book itself. While we did lose, the question of having to grapple with, you know, philosophically, what's the right decision, having no remorse about sending Ryland Grace to space or having it be his own choice. One of the things I loved about the movie was while it did kind of ditch that aspect, I feel like it focused a lot more on bravery. And there were two lines in it, of course, when Ryland asks the first pilot, how are you so brave? And then he responds, you have to find someone that you're brave for, that it's easy. And then later on in the movie, he literally decides, I'm going to die. And he's okay with that. You know, he completely, I won't say does a 180 because, of course he's been in that environment for a while. It's something he's probably come to terms with, even though he didn't. That's just something people say. But he went back to save Rocky, and I love that. It wasn't even a question. It was just something that he figured out that he had to do. He had found that someone that he had to be brave for, and it was a friend. And I really love that about the movie because it focused a lot more on
The
their
way
friendship than.
the way that comes full circle is so satisfying, and it honestly, the directors here respect the audience enough that they don't like spell it out for you. I mean, it's not like this crazy revelation. I mean, it's gonna happen, but I'm just glad there wasn't like any flashbacks or any like little montage like right before he makes his choice. It wasn't like incredibly dramatic. I'm glad they didn't like show the whiteboard again where it says where the question pulls up and it says like, who would you be willing to die for? Because in a different movie, someone else would have done that. They would have kind of spelled it out, like, "Oh, this is the theme of the movie." I'm glad they didn't do it here. It doesn't take a brainiac to kind of figure this one out, but it's satisfying. Like, yeah, it does come full circle at the end. He finds someone he's willing to die for, and it's not, it's not even humanity. It's Rocky, and it's awesome. That was such a good scene.
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys there. I think that whenever you're choosing to elevate certain themes, you're going to have to flatten others, like, naturally. And it just so happened that some of the greater questions of humanity got flattened. And that's okay. Like, that's 100% a choice. And I respect the choice. I think that it paid off because it makes for a very focused film, I think, overall. It would have been a lot muddier if they tried to also capture some of the broader questions of human beings just operating in the world, like the societal questions. that would have, I think, muddied the waters regarding what they're trying to say. And so they 100% choosing to focus on bravery and sacrifice and cowardice shows really well. Because of them highlighting that, it makes it where I'm able to look at his experience as a middle school teacher, and instead of seeing that as him being pushed out of academia, it feels more like an escape from academia, like a choice that he would make as a coward, trying to run away from his problems, run away from the confrontation. He escapes academia and goes to teach middle school because guess what? Like it's a lot simpler there. Not to say that there's any problem with that, because he's clearly a teacher at heart. He clearly loves teaching. But that's ultimately why he goes to teach. It's not because he has this premonition that middle school is his calling. No, it's because he's running away. And I thought that showed a lot better in the film than the book.
That was a
I
great
will
part of
say,
the book.
I will say, like, yeah, that no, for sure, it is a great part of the book. And yeah, now he is a coward, but I will say that one thing I like about the story just in general is that, yeah, he kind of is a loser and he did kind of run away, but at the same time, maybe he doesn't admit it, but he is like going toward the project. Like he is finding his way into the project. It's not an accident. Like he might think it's an accident, and it might not be explicitly stated that it's not an accident, but he's looking for these venues, he has the potential to be great. I mean, it's what Carl says at the end of that scene where he
Show
is,
them who you are.
being chased by the security guards. Like, you know who you are. You'll do great. And I think it's a subtle thing. Maybe I'm reading too in between the lines here, but it's just Strat asks him, like, "Do you want to be a part of this project?" And he says, "Yeah, I want to help humanity." And he goes. I mean, it's not an accident. Like getting promoted all the way to the top, it might look like an accident, but part of him always had the courage there. And so I think that's a little like, maybe, it's an inference that I'm making, but I think it elevates the story, at least for me, that
No,
at the
you're
very end,
definitely right.
he has the bravery. Everybody has the bravery. You just have to look for it from within, It's not spelled out for you, but when he finally makes the choice, I mean, that last message he sends to Strat, I mean, maybe I've seen the movie too many times, but his posture is completely different. He's so calm. He's not like stuttering or anything. He's just giving the message. He's smiling. He calls himself, Captain Dr. Ryland Grace. Captain of Project Hail Mary, as the Iridians say, and he does the whole thing, right? Like he completely comes full circle in that, finding the bravery, which I'm glad it's a theme that this movie touches up on, that the book only sort of hints at. That is one of
Everything
the
you just
strengths of the
said.
movie.
Yeah, it's probably it. Like the more I think about it, the more I start to love it, because it's only upon reading the book, watching the movie twice, and talking about it multiple times with you, but also in a podcast, that you kind of get to acknowledge that it is different than the book, but at the end of it, the movie itself, it's a story about bravery, and I really love that. He gains his confidence with the scene with Carl telling him, "You know who you are." It's such like an easy line to ignore, to see as this friend who's betraying another friend. But no, it's about a guy who doesn't believe in himself, doesn't believe in his capabilities. And really, when he gets to space, the only reason that he's so confident is because he thinks he voluntarily went on the mission. That's the assumption that he boards Hail Mary with. But it's so crazy to me because, even all of his belongings, I never really thought about this before, but everything that he and the others had brought as their personal items, Strat probably just got her people to raid his house and bring the important things. And what I love
Yeah,
is
yeah.
they bought the little world, the little earth that he had given to her or shown her as lava, whatever you want to call it. And that's such like an important part to me, that he goes from being this, I guess I'll say a cowardly loser, to someone who is stepping up and saving an entire planet. And it's the most zero to hero story that you don't even really think of
2
as a zero to
planets.
hero. Exactly. And it's like, I just, it's one of those movies that really does need to be seen by as many people as it can be seen by, because it's such a testament to being brave in the face of the unknown.
Yeah, it very much reminded me of this story. It's an anecdote, but I'm pretty sure there's also like a statistic of some kind to back it up. I don't know. I'm on a podcast. If you really want to know it, look it up yourself. But this idea that there was this student who, you know, took the SAT, got a report back that he did super well in the SAT, and then got into a really prestigious university, and then had a great career, became a businessman, you know, like put his life together. He had horrible grades in high school, but that SAT score is what got him to that next level and made him think like, I'm smart. And then years and years later, he got a thing in the mail back saying, actually, your test score was mixed up with another student's. This was a mistake. You got like a horrible score. You actually got a horrible score. Yeah, at the same time, at that point in his life, he was able to see the fruit of his labor. He is able to say, yes, that point, that piece was a lie, but none of the other stuff was. You know, I went to Harvard. I got the degree, became a successful entrepreneur. Like, yeah, the SAT part wasn't me, apparently. And apparently I did horrible on that. Yet I actually am smart. I am brave. And I think that sort of sentiment is very much shown through the movie, especially. The book does a very, very good job, but I think the movie shows it in a little bit more of a pointed sort of way. It's a story about bravery, and I think you put the nail on the coffin there. That was 100%. Like that's exactly what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, you need to believe in yourself, but sometimes all you need is for someone else to believe in you, or for something to, you know, kind of show that, oh, hey, maybe you do have greatness in you, because you do. Just have to, you know, believe that you do, and eventually it'll come out. You know, maybe not right away, but it kind of develops over time. I think that's a great story, and I think this movie and this book also, you know, captures that idea of bravery and courage. And I think that's why it resonates with a lot of people. I think that's why it's one of the reasons why it's such a hit right now.
You hear that, audience? You're not a cowardly loser.
You're not a
You heard it here
coward.
first. You heard it here first. You're actually super brave, probably, baby.
You know who you are. You'll do
You
great.
know who you are. Yeah, some of you probably are cowardly losers. I'm sorry, but like most of you are probably super brave. Probably, I would wager so. I mean, go watch Project Hail Mary. You'll know
The
for
cowardly
sure.
losers are capable of being great, and I think that's the important part.
That's the important part.
Yeah,
you
that's
can
the important
change.
part.
You can no longer be a cowardly loser. If you're like a middle school teacher, suck it up and go save the world. Actually,
Yeah, go save the world.
It's the minimum
because
expected
the
of you
real
at this point.
Yeah, I mean the real like moral of Project Hail Mary is actually that middle school teachers are apparently cowardly losers. No,
I mean,
that's not true.
we pay
Teachers
you
are
more
awesome.
than enough.
Teachers
Teach
are
high
great.
school. Come
Yeah,
on,
Your
guys.
money is going to you, so you go ahead and save the
I'm
world.
joking. I'm joking. No, teachers are great. Middle school teachers especially. I feel bad for you. I'm sorry you have to do that. But no, this book was great. The movie was great. I really am shocked. I expected them to fumble it, but also at the same time, I mean, the trailer looked good, and so I had high hopes. Is it sure a little rocky you're showing
That
everybody?
is Rocky. It's he has a face though, and he doesn't have the carapace. I learned the word carapace from this book,
Thanks.
so if you want to learn more words, read the book. You know.
100%. I mean, okay, guys, did you finish your drinks? I'm just curious.
No, I did not.
did
I
finish
do
my
not
drink.
like vodka. All in all, I'd say I'd give this movie
I just finished
2
my drink.
thumbs down.
Amaze,
Accidentally.
amaze, amaze.
2 thumbs down. Because here at Novels and Nightcaps, everybody, we finish our drinks. You have a good night.